Hey, that's right. It is a Friday edition of Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason talking about these crafty Denver Broncos, Mace. They got a big one on Sunday.
Yeah, they've got a big one, but they have a big name added to their injury report today.
A big name and one when you were facing that Packers defense. Well, that's a name you don't want to have spring up.
Yeah, you're starting right tackle. Not practicing today.
A little nerve-wracking with Micah Parsons up on the docket.
And Rashawn Gary. That's the thing. They have two guys who come at you. It's one of the teams that not quite as all-encompassing in their pass rush as the Broncos, but the fact that you've got Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary, it is one of the better pass rushes in the NFL and one of the multifaceted pass rushes. So Mike McGlinchey landing on the injury report today with a shoulder issue that has him listed as questionable and being listed as a DNP. That is the cause for concern at this moment. I mean, that being said, in the locker room, he didn't look like he had anything on his shoulder, so hopefully everything will be okay. And we've seen guys listed as questionable on Friday throughout the year that end up playing on Sunday. So make of that what you will. So it's not something where you're like, oh well, he's definitely going to be out. That's not necessarily the case here, but it certainly does bring a little concern into the air for the Broncos here as you get into Sunday. That's where the Broncos' concern is. And of course, the Packers' big concern is Josh Jacobs, who did practice today on a limited basis after 2 DNPs, and he too is listed as questionable for Sunday.
So if I'm to guess on McGlinchey, and that's all it is, Mace, correct me if you feel I'm in error. A DNP on Friday could mean just some extra soreness. For a veteran like McGlinchey, it's different. If you look at the Jacobs situation, it's DNP limited.
Yes.
I would much rather have Friday limited than Friday DNP. But if I think about the mayor, Mike McGlinchey, I go, oh, well, he's a seasoned veteran. It might be some soreness. He doesn't need every practice rep. Like, I guess maybe I'm trying to make excuses, but I'm a little less worried, although it was something that wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is usually you see if it happened in practice, it shows up as limited on Thursday, and then sometimes like DNP are limited on Friday. Like, remember, of course, Pat Bryant limited last Thursday and then was limited the following day. And Pat Bryant, of course, that's the other bit of news because Pat Bryant was officially ruled out for Sunday's game. And by the way, for those of you who wonder why does everybody ask Sean Payton about injuries when he isn't willing to talk about injuries? Well, every so often, Sean Payton is willing to talk about injuries. And so, as I was saying to our friend Chris Thomason, who did ask the question, okay, 9 times out of 10, maybe Sean Payton during the season is going to be bummed about injuries. But then there's the 10th time when he actually says something, and that's why you keep asking. And so here's Sean Payton talking about Pat Bryant's injury, listed as a hamstring injury, but he kind of implies it's something a little bit different. Here's Sean Payton from earlier today.
No, listen, and it's hard to describe. It's attached to the hamstring. We feel like if this was a playoff game, or in other words, he'd be able to go, and yet in order to get him back to full strength, we feel like we've done the right thing this week.
Okay.
It's attached to the hamstring.
The hip bone's connected to the.
That's where my mind went. I was like, knee bone, thigh bone, like what? Okay, hamstring. What's connected? Like, what's the song?
Do we have to,
Sean.
Do we have to start playing Operation and going through like, where all the bones are and all that, and all the ligaments are? But yeah, so and that and therein is why the injuries, the injury questions will keep coming because every so often you'll get a, thorough answer, or as thorough as you can expect from a head coach during the season. So no Pat Bryant.
Okay.
I do wonder what they'll do at wide receiver because, of course, what we've seen this year is we've seen all hands on deck at wide receiver most of the year in terms of everybody being active. So do you go a player short or do you bring somebody up? Now, if you went kind of with the next guy in terms of it, like just raw, straight up depth chart, you'd probably say, okay, Michael Bandy, of course, having played earlier this year, and he stepped in when Marvin Mims Jr. was unavailable, also because Bandy filled in on punt returns. If you're going for a little more of a skill set fit, you'd see, obviously, Lil Jordan Humphrey take snaps, but a skill set fit, then it would be skill set and body type fit. You'd think A.T. Perry would be the guy that they would call on and bring up from the practice squad and elevate. So interested to see what the call is, if there is a call on Saturday for the Broncos to use a practice squad elevation on one of those receivers. That we'll find that out at roughly 2 p.m. on Saturday if they choose to use an elevation or not.
Any thoughts about Elijah Moore? I know that's being bandied about, but he would actually be, well, actually it'd be second. I don't need to see Michael Bandy again. It'd be Perry first and then consider Elijah Moore because he's there too, but how quickly is he up to speed in what you're doing?
That would be the big question. I mean, he'd definitely be an X factor right now and certainly would be intriguing. Definitely not an apples to apples replacement in terms of what he can do and in terms of, again, kind of body type, because with Pat Bryant, you're talking about somebody who is very valuable in terms of the blocking game as a wide receiver. And that's why sort of the most logical thing is bump up Lil Jordan and then have A.T. Perry come in, or have A.T. Perry inherit some of the snaps and Lil Jordan continue in the role that he had last week. So that would seem to be the best fit because Elijah Moore, I mean, remember, he's even shorter than Marvin Mims Jr. So is he necessarily somebody who's going to do everything that you'd want in terms of the blocking aspect if he had to come in? You'd be another guy lower in terms of what you'd want to do outside in terms of the run game part of it. So that's why I'm curious to see the move here, because if it's Elijah Moore, you've got a different type of wide receiver room on game day than you have. If it's A.T. Perry that you bring up, it's roughly the same skill sets that you had last week in terms of who your wide receivers are. If it's, Elijah Moore changes like what your wide receiver room looks like. So it'll be an interesting decision here what the Broncos choose to do.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and we'll see what they do. Let's say disaster, it's no McGlinchey. Frank Crum?
Yeah, because unless, again, the only other move would be if you decided to have Calvin Throckmorton go in and then bump Alex Palczewski back outside to right tackle. But at this point, you probably want to have the least disruption, and Palcho is settled in at left guard. So the least disruptive move at this moment would be Frank Crum. It's sort of an interesting thing to consider because 4 weeks from now, the least disruptive move, like 4 weeks from now, if and when Ben Powers is back, and Ben Powers is trending to be back. He's not going to play in this game, but Sean Payton did say everything's progressing well. I would expect Ben Powers back, say, next week.
Okay.
4 weeks from now, if an injury happened at right tackle, it would probably be Palcho going in And then if something happened at left guard, you'd say, okay, Throckmorton and then Palkshow. Throckmorton at left guard, Palkshow at right tackle. But right now, the least disruptive move would be to leave Palkshow at left guard and to put Frank Crum in at right tackle in terms of how you're divvying things up. So I would imagine if you play without McGlinchey, you'd probably go with Frank Crum because it's the least disruptive to the entire line, even though, man, like that's a heavy roll of the dice given what you're facing with Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons on the edge. Although the thing with Micah Parsons is they move him around so much that taking care of him is everybody's responsibility. I mean, if you're Quinn Miners at some point, you're going to be going against Micah Parsons probably in this game.
Yeah.
If you are, RJ Harvey is going to be tasked at some point probably with picking up a Micah Parsons rush. It takes the village to protect your quarterback against Micah Parsons. And that's part of the challenge here, and we'll dive more into that on Saturday. It's not simply, oh, GB, you're taking care of him. That's not the case here. And I guess I've sort of made the argument for, I've made it, because it's everybody, I've kind of made an argument for leaving Palkshow in, but at the same time, if you're Green Bay and you see a first-time starter in Frank Crum, who certainly has oodles of physical talent, but is still extremely raw out there, you'd probably say, okay, I'm going at that spot if you see Crum at right tackle. And it might be a game where they didn't move Micah Parsons very much, and they said, okay, like you're gonna attack that spot.
And there's then the weak spot we're going after.
And then that means you are going to have Adam Troutman and Nate Adkins stay in and chip, which means you're going to operate with one less target downfield, and it probably inhibits what you can do in terms of personnel packages because you maybe can't do as much scat protection as Sean Payton would like to do.
Yeah, it's going to be piecing it together. Maybe a little. Sean Payton has a little MacGyver in him. I think he has a lot of MacGyver in him, honestly.
Yeah, well, I think the whole team has MacGyver in him because it's a very resourceful team that knows a lot of different ways to win football games. It's one of the reasons why they're sitting there right now with the best record in the NFL, because they've figured out plenty of different paths to success over the course of the year. I mean, last week they found another one because 3 of the 4 longest drives in terms of time of possession in the Sean Payton era happened last week. So they did something that they really haven't done under Sean Payton. Yet another way to win a game by squeezing everything out of the clock and squeezing the life out of the Raiders like they did.
Mm-hmm. Winning different ways is what the Broncos have become accustomed to this year, and they're going to have to do it again on Sunday. We've got some thoughts about the narrative street around the Denver Broncos that we're going to get to. But first, how about a word from our sponsor?
At Ramos Law, they believe in building long-term relationships with their clients. Wondering if you have enough insurance? Send them your coverage information, and they'll review it for you absolutely free. Dr. Joseph Ramos spent years treating injured patients in the Denver General Emergency Department, making him a true injury expert. Ramos Law, uniquely built to fight for you.
Let's talk about the Packers being favored, Mace, and let's talk about the doubters that still are out there, and let's talk about, well, philosophy, because wisdom is knowing what to ignore. And I generally don't care what other people honestly think about me. I don't care what the national narrative is about the Denver Broncos. We know this team can play some good football. It's going to take a lot to beat the Packers on Sunday. But certainly that narrative, maybe not frauds, but like that narrative about, yeah, the Broncos have a good record, but they're not a good team. That's out there.
It's out there, but within the locker room, it's like, hey, What narrative? Here's John Franklin Myers.
Nah, I mean, it's not our narrative. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that's talking ain't in this building for real. They ain't saying what we do every day. They ain't putting the work in. So, we go about business one way, and, when it's time to go, it's time to go.
I love
think-
JFM.
I think the brown word is his favorite word.
I think it is too, man. I think it is too.
It seems to always slip in every time he's answering questions at once, just at one point or another. But yeah, that's pretty common. Something similar coming from Nick Benito talking about the doubters.
I like it. I love it. It fuels me, honestly. I like when people doubt us. They can stay on that side, honestly. So we'll go out and prove it. We got to prove something.
So yeah, like it's funny. So it's like it's not their narrative, but they're using it. They are using it. That's the thing. So it's not their. You have JFM saying it's not their narrative, but they do hear it. Now Nick Benito, of course, we know he's active on social media. So as we learned during the Giants week, Nick's got some rabbit ears.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He's aware of it. Now, with what JFM said, I actually had a follow-up to ask him, because what I wanted to get at was, all right, is Sean bringing this up to you? Like, is he mentioning this in meetings? Like, hey, like, oh, these guys don't bleeping believe in you. Like, they're making you underdogs. You've won 10 in a row. Like, I can't
Bulletin board.
I can't do a Sean Payton like I do. I could if a John Fox. Hey, like, if I could get my voice cracked like John Fox. Like, hey, 10 in a, you've won 10 in a row. No one believes in you. Like anyway.
Always seems like he's out of breath, John Fox.
Yeah,
They don't believe in you.
Yeah, perpetually out of breath, perpetual scratchy voice. So anyway, I did ask JFM if it's the kind of thing that Sean would toss out there as motivational fuel when he's speaking to the guys in a team meeting.
I think that he has to bring a little bit of it up, but he doesn't care about it, neither do we. I mean, you can't control what other people say. And honestly, we won 10 straight at home, 10 straight, and it's like you're still underdogs. How can you listen to what anybody says? What are they talking about?
He has to bring some of it up. That smile told me, yes, he's bringing it up. When I saw that look on his face, that's like, yep, Sean's definitely bringing up in the team meeting. Probably that first meeting that they're having when they come back on Wednesday, because that's usually the meeting where the tone gets set. Mm-hmm. When the team comes back from its off day.
Here's the plan.
That's the plan. That's often where talking points get established, like some of the big numbers that stick. So oftentimes when players meet the media on Wednesday and they toss out a number that says, oh, well, they're like, one of the best, they're second in the league in red zone, whatever. That's typically something that they got from that meeting. Mm-hmm. Yep. And the coach usually likes to, put it in very clear terms. I think it was something like Andy Reid. Andy Reid has said like that he wants to get everything on a note card and take it into the meeting, and said if his points don't fit on a note card, it's too much, and he shouldn't bring that forward because everyone's only got so much attention span. To kind of use an example, it was the problem that Jerry Rosberg would have had if he'd become full-time head coach, because we all know about story time with Uncle Jerry there for the 2 weeks he was interim head coach at his press conferences. And one critique that players did have of him as head coach is that his speeches to the team were quite meandering and lengthy, kind of like his press conferences. Jer Bear would have had to get that thing under control and get his message tightened and channeled a little bit. But anyway, good coaches like to kind of get that message focused down and distilled to a few big points, a few numbers that are going to stick in players' heads. And that's why it's always interesting that to go around the locker room on a Wednesday, and sometimes you'll hear 2 or 3 players say the same thing or something very similar. And that's when you know, okay, yep, that was something that got said this morning, and it stuck in their heads. That's when you kind of that's a hint that tells you kind of what you don't know the detail of the game plan, but you know
Message.
kind of the message and the focal point of what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So that's I thought it was. We got some breadcrumbs this week, I thought, from guys in terms of what we learned this week, and we'll get into it a little more on Saturday, but something that Jonathan Cooper alluded to was how they last year they kind of ran out of gas a little bit.
Okay.
At the end as they got toward the end of the season in the playoffs.
That's true.
They did. They really did.
Oh yeah.
Especially on the defensive side. And we talked about this a lot in the offseason. The D definitely faded down the stretch. Nick Benito talked about this in July. He thought he faded down the stretch. And actually, if you look kind of at the 3 games, Indy, Chargers, Bengals, were throwing out the Kansas City game against their JV. In terms of QB hits and sacks, it was the worst 3-game stretch in terms of his own productivity as a pass rusher that he had all season. So there were numbers to back up what he was feeling. And so he mentioned this before the start of training camp, that he focused his off-season work on improving his long-term stamina so he didn't wear down the way he felt he wore down last year. So this has been something that has been on guys' minds for a while, that they felt like they had that fade, and then on top of that, when they went to Buffalo, they learned, okay, this is what that higher level looks like when you get to the playoffs. That you've got to be rising, whether it's finding another gear or just continuing to improve. You got to be rising to something in those last few weeks, and then in the playoffs. And the Broncos didn't do that. That was the lesson they learned. Now we get to see how they apply that here, starting Sunday. That's part of what fascinates me about this, because they have some experience from last year, and they're facing a team that's got a bit more experience in this type of situation. Not necessarily more success, but more experience in this scenario. Jordan Love's been to the playoffs twice. He's got a playoff win in his back pocket. There are plenty of guys on the Packers who have more playoff appearances on their ledger. Matt LaFleur has been to the postseason, I believe all but once in his career. Like, it's with this team, and again, you've got core guys with the Packers, who some of whom have been around since 19, 20, 21, so 21. So there are a lot of guys there that have the roadmap, that know all about getting to that next level, and they've had some wins, they've had some disappointing losses, but they know all about this. They have plenty of experience. The Broncos have less experience. What did they learn from last year? How did they apply it against a team that's definitely got some battle test to it here? As Gary Kubiak would say, we're fixing to find out.
I can't wait. Get your popcorn ready and get ready for this big one for the Denver Broncos against the Green Bay Packers. In Broncos country, you can be huge for this game. You can impact it in a way. So their experience versus the home field advantage and the Mile High Magic, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. It's cool that the games kind of get bigger and bigger because that Chiefs game was so big last month, but in some ways this one feels bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty cool. That's part of being a very good team is that the games should get bigger as
It
they
used
go
to be
along.
like this. We were
Yes.
around when it was like this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's good to be back, Mace. It's
Yeah.
good to be back in this feel of like December football matters.
Yeah, like when the ornaments go on the tree and the lights get turned on, the games should crank up a notch. That's what I associate with December. It's not just the holidays; it's meaningful football. That's what's exciting about this.
Yep. And expect the playoff standings to move a lot.
Yeah,
A lot. Kansas City has a 0% chance if they lose this week against the
0%,
Chargers.
0%.
0%. Yes, 0%. If they lose, they're
Yeah,
done.
that makes sense. I mean, 9-8 isn't getting you home in the AFC.
No.
Think about that. Wow. I mean, they lose this game. They lose on Sunday, and Bill Simmons made the great point that Patrick Mahomes would do something that Tom Brady never did: play a meaningless game with his team eliminated from the playoff race, potentially. I mean, that's wild to think about.
That's crazy for a guy who's always been in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, always been like in the AFC, has never failed to make the AFC Championship, and right now they're staring down the barrel of not even making the playoffs. Last week was watching that game against the Texans. Before we go, just watching them against the Texans as I was doing my work in the press box. When they had that interception that bounced off Kelsey's hands, that was the moment where I did say, it feels like 7 years to a decade of good fortune just entirely reversing itself on them.
Mm-hmm.
That it just everything that went right for so long is inverting and going wrong. It was because like that was the play. Like you can and the looks on their faces after that play. They zoomed in on Kelsey's face, and I think they zoomed in on Mahomes' face too. Yeah. Just like nobody there is used to those sorts of bounces happening.
Usually goes the complete opposite.
Right. And they're all and it's like it's just a waterfall of these bounces happening this year, one after another, after another, after another, after another. And I mean, it's like, hey, this is how the rest of the world lives. But it is to an extreme in their case, but just like it's all coming back on them at once. So, it's just one of those things. But that's where, like, it's. I think Broncos country is having a lot of fun watching it. I think there's a lot of Schadenfreude there.
Oh yeah,
I think there's Schadenfreude around the league. Honestly, I don't think it's just with Broncos fans. I think there are probably a good solid 28, 29 fan bases that have Chiefs fatigue at this point.
Oh yeah,
They're ready to see somebody else. Of course, because there was Patriots fatigue after a while. Anytime a team is terrific for a long stretch, everybody gets tired of them. It's just is an inevitability in any sport. It's people don't root for dynasties. That's where some of these blowhards on national TV they get it wrong. People don't want dynasties. Most people would rather see things spread around.
Mm-hmm.
Would rather if it can't be their team. I think like most people, if it can't be your team winning, I think most people would rather see like Cleveland win or Detroit win, right? Because their fans have never experienced this.
Right.
I think if the Broncos can't win, I think there are probably a lot of Broncos fans that would be happy if, say, Buffalo won because Bills fans have never won it all. Like, they never won a Super Bowl. Like, that would be a result that I think a lot of people might be okay with if the Broncos didn't win. I don't think I think the one exception would be the Chargers, even though they've never won it all. Being in the division, I don't think Broncos country would want the Chargers to win.
No,
but they're
never.
a rival. But like, you look around at the other contenders, I think it'd be like, okay, Detroit wins, okay, fine. Buffalo wins, okay, fine. You know, they let them have their fun. Jacksonville wins, okay, fine. Like that kind of thing. I don't know if Houston's been around long enough to earn that, but those three fan bases, I think, have probably paid their dues enough. Actually, Houston's fan base, probably you'd say, yeah, because they're the Oilers years too. So
Right.
yeah, okay. So you'd say they've suffered enough too, and they actually had the suffering of watching one of their teams go. So yeah, you'd say Houston fans have paid their dues too.
Be like when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, or excuse me, the Colts won the Super Bowl. It's like you go away, you come back. You're the Indianapolis.
Well, no,
Colts.
You mean the Ravens.
Ravens.
Because
Sorry.
pretty much every Ravens fan of a certain age was a Colts fan. It's why, even though the Ravens are a relatively new team as far as being in Baltimore, they have a fan base that's more like that of, say, the Steelers or the Browns or the Giants, because they have that generational fan base, because it's the Baltimore diaspora, like people from that part of the country that have moved elsewhere. They were Colts fans and they became Ravens fans, and they passed it on to future generations and all that. So it's very much it's the one relocation where that happened, where people, no matter where you were from, if you were from Baltimore, most people from Baltimore seem to latch on to the Ravens, even if they'd left Baltimore. People, because I know some people from Baltimore and they'd left that city, still became Ravens fans when the Ravens came into being. They just, because it was like their connection. They just instantly assumed them. So it was a very weird thing, but Baltimore is a very unique place. So culturally.
We have a connection.
People
with
there are
you all.
very proud. Baltimore people are very proud of being from Baltimore.
Good for them.
Yes, they are. It's kind of, they very, very much are. Like people from Buffalo or people from Pittsburgh. Baltimore people are very proud to be from Baltimore.
I made fun of Cleveland the other day, and one of Dover's friends texted him. It's like, tell Cecil to lay off Cleveland. I was like,
Yeah.
Cleveland sucks, bro. Sorry.
There's a lot of pride for Baltimoreans. I think I got that right.
Sounds right.
Marylanders.
That is right.
Yeah, that is definitely right.
All right. It's definitely right. If you join us here on Orange and Blue today, some segues can use a little work. But anyway, we need your help on YouTube to help us grow our channel. Mace, how can folks do just that?
Like,
Comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell.
so that you
Never
miss
vid.
vid.
By the
That's
way, you
right.
can't see it, but there's a Baltimore Colts pennant right up there off camera. Here.
Okay.
So, yeah. A little mid-Atlantic flavor.
There you go.
Yeah.
We got it. We got all the flavor for you. It's frosty and saucy is what the chat room likes calling us. So that's it. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Wait for our Saturday game plan show, 9 a.m. only on all platforms, but on YouTube, 9 a.m. debut. Be there and stay frosty.